Back in 2013, when I was 17, my family was house hunting. We found a place that seemed perfect. A good deal, a nice neighborhood, and a quiet street. The owner, an older man, met us there. He was friendly, polite, and eager to talk. Said he'd built the house himself, that it was sturdy, dependable. I hung back, letting my parents do the talking. But I watched him. He laughed, smiled, joked. Then, in an instant, something shifted. The conversation hit a pause, and his face changed. The warmth drained from his features, replaced with something dark. A cold, hateful expression. Pure malice, like he was looking at something disgusting. He didn't see me watching. Probably thought I was on my phone, head down, distracted. But I caught every second of it. Then, just as quickly, he snapped back to his cheerful self, grinning and nodding like nothing had happened. It gave me chills. I told my mom about it later. She agreed it was weird but shrugged it off. Maybe he's just awkward, she said. We bought the house anyway. First, everything was normal. Then, the first Sunday after we moved in, my family went to church. I wasn't in the mood, so I stayed home alone. It was a stormy day, windy, overcast, the kind of day that makes you want to curl up and do nothing. Around 11 a.m., I heard banging. Loud, rhythmic, coming from the side of the house. I was upstairs on the opposite side, so I couldn't see what it was. Maybe just the wind, I told myself. The storm rattled the windows, so it made sense. The banging stopped after 5 minutes. Then, 10 minutes later, I heard footsteps. Downstairs. Not the kind of creaks and groans an old house makes. No, someone walking. Heavy, deliberate steps. Chairs scraping. Cabinet doors swinging open. The fridge door opening, then closing. I froze. My breath hitched in my throat. My heart pounded. Quietly, I locked my bedroom door. Grabbed my baseball bat from the corner. Hands shaking, I picked up my phone and dialed 911. As I whispered my address, I texted my mom. Someone's in the house. I tried to stay calm, but then I heard it. The footsteps moving toward the stairs. The house wasn't big. I could hear exactly where he was. Each step creaked closer. Mom texted back, "On my way." She was 30 minutes away. I was 17, 5 feet 2 inches, barely 100 pounds. If whoever this was got in, I didn't stand a chance. Then, the footsteps stopped outside my door. The handle turned. It didn't budge. Locked. He stood there, breathing, just on the other side of the door. Deep, slow breaths. 10 seconds. The longest 10 seconds of my life. Then he turned, walked back down the hallway. The back door creaked open, then slammed shut. 3 minutes later, the police arrived. The dispatcher asked if I could let them in. My legs barely worked, but I forced myself to move. I crept downstairs and unlocked the door. The house was empty. No forced entry. No broken locks. Nothing. Like no one had ever been there. When my mom got home, she turned to my stepdad. "Did you change the locks yet?" He hadn't. Then we saw the footprints. My mom had vacuumed that morning. But now, in the upstairs hallway, a trail of shoe prints led straight to my door, bigger than any of ours. The cops hadn't gone up there. No one else had been inside. We changed the locks the next day, added extra security. But I never felt safe in that house again. Even now, I get chills thinking about how close I was to whoever, or whatever, was standing outside my door. Years later, my wife and I bought a house in rural Missouri. It was built in 1997, a former horse ranch set deep in the countryside. The first owner had passed away in 2022 after a long illness. He didn't die in the master bedroom. His wife had moved him to a smaller room down the hall during his final days. She stayed in the house for years after, refusing to sell until she had no choice. Financial reasons. When we first moved in, we stayed in a hotel 20 miles away, making trips back and forth. Walmart runs, fast food, hauling boxes, it was exhausting. The first time I noticed something strange was with the hallway light. I flipped it on that morning, left it on all day. When we came back that night, it was off. I turned it on again. A few hours later, it was off. The hallway was dark, leading to the bedroom and bathroom where the man had spent his last days. I asked my wife if she'd turned it off. She frowned. No. Why? The switch was firm. It wasn't loose. You had to click it on and off. Then, earlier that day, I'd been the first to step inside the house. My wife had stayed in the barn, 200 feet away. We'd left our dogs in the laundry room overnight. The house had been locked. Yet, when I walked in, I felt something. Like I wasn't alone. Like someone or something was watching. I stepped onto the back patio, the night air thick and still. Sliding open the glass door, I made my way to the laundry room, pushing open the outside door to let the dogs out. As I stepped inside and shut the door behind me, I reached for the handle to go back out. It wouldn't budge. That was odd. The door doesn't lock, yet the handle wouldn't turn, wouldn't move at all. A dead thing in my grip. A chill crept up my spine. I let out a slow breath, backed away, and walked around to the patio again, slipping into the house through the sliding door. When I tried the laundry door from the inside, it swung open without resistance. Smooth, effortless. The handle gleamed, sturdy, like new. It shouldn't have stuck like that. Maybe it was nothing, but the feeling sat heavy in my gut. Before leaving for dinner, I flicked on the hallway light and left it burning, just in case. Hours later, when we returned, the hallway light was still on, right where I left it. That should have reassured me. Didn't. That night, we locked the pugs in the laundry room before heading to a hotel. When we came back the next day, the dogs were loose. They'd torn through the house, chewed up papers, pillows, whatever they could get their little teeth into. But the ADT alarm never went off. Our security system has motion detectors inside, sensitive ones. If anything larger than a rat moves, it trips the alarm. But it stayed silent, even as our dogs ran wild. We drive trucks for a living, gone for weeks at a time. At our old house, a lady looked after our animals, but this made no sense. How did they get out? The laundry room door had a handle, not a knob. It had to be pulled down, and then the door had to be pulled inward. The pugs weren't tall enough. Even if one managed to jump up and grab the handle, how would they pull the door open toward them? And the strangest part? Every time we returned, the door was shut again. Not left ajar, not swinging open, closed tight. One night, I tested it myself. I pressed the handle down, and the door swung open inward, as expected. But it wouldn't close on its own. No way. Someone or something had to push it shut. Then came the fourth night. That's when it got worse. I stood in front of the bedroom door, the one where the previous owner had spent his last days before hospice. I reached for the handle, gave it a pull. Nothing. The handle wouldn't turn. The door wouldn't budge. It wasn't locked, but it felt like someone, was holding it closed from the other side. Before, the door always had some give, a slight shift when I pushed against it. Now it was like cement. My breath hitched. I pressed harder, straining, muscles flexing. Then, it gave way. Not gradually. Not with a creak. No, it let go all at once, as if whatever had been holding it shut had suddenly released it. I stumbled back, heart hammering. The handle hadn't made a sound when it moved. No clicking. No scraping. Nothing. My blood turned to ice. I nearly bolted outside to my wife, waiting in the pickup. We aren't living in the house right now. A flood wrecked it weeks ago, and we're in California, waiting to see if repairs are even worth it. But the ADT alarm is still armed, and it keeps going off. Last time, ADT called to tell us the front door had been opened, motion detected in the front room. But when the officer arrived, everything was secure. Locked. No signs of forced entry. This has happened twice now. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just a glitch. But my gut says otherwise. I don't know if we'll ever move back in. We tried blessing the house, but even after leaving, things keep happening. Evil exists, I believe that now, and I don't want it in my home. If we do return, I'm putting crosses everywhere. The previous owner's wife lied about the house. She just wanted to make the sale. That made me so angry I destroyed something they left behind, an old item meant for a dead relative. Later, I regretted it. But the missing pieces, gone, vanished, like they never existed. And maybe they don't. Maybe they never did. A few years ago, my family moved from downstate to upstate New York. Our new neighborhood was quiet, mostly older folks. Our house had belonged to an elderly couple. They didn't die there. They just moved out. For the first year, nothing weird happened. Then one day, while I was alone in the basement, I heard footsteps overhead. Slow, deliberate. In my mom's bedroom. I was the only one home. I told myself it was just the house settling. Just noises, nothing to worry about. But I didn't believe that. When I was about 12, living in Kansas, something really disturbing happened that I'll never forget. I was in my room, sitting on the floor, playing Halo on my old Xbox. My parents had gone out to run errands, and my older sister was working a shift at her job, so I was home alone. Well, not completely alone. We had 2 dogs, a little terrier and a Bichon Frise. They weren't big guard dogs, more like little alarms that barked at anything unusual. I had stayed home alone before, so it wasn't a big deal. We lived in a pretty safe neighborhood where nothing bad ever really happened. Except for one time when someone spray-painted KKK graffiti on some park equipment nearby. Anyway, I was relaxing in my chair, fully in gamer mode. I had a bag of Doritos in one hand, my controller in the other, totally focused. Then, I heard it. The clear sound of the front door opening and then closing, like someone had just come inside. The room I was in faced the backyard, so I couldn't see the front door or who might be coming in. My dogs immediately perked up and bolted into the living room. I figured it must be my parents coming home early. Maybe they'd finished their errands faster than expected. But still, something felt off. Just to be sure, I called out, "Mom? Dad? Is that you?" Silence. That made me nervous. I've always been a little paranoid, probably because strange things seem to happen around me. My dogs weren't barking like they usually do when someone comes home, and that felt strange. I paused my game and got up to check. When I walked into the living room, there was no one there. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I was sure I had heard someone come in. I wasn't wearing headphones, the TV was turned down low, and I had music playing softly in the background. The sound didn't come from my game. As soon as I realized something was off, I went straight to my parents' closet and grabbed my baseball bat. That's just what you do in the Midwest when you think there might be trouble. You get ready to defend yourself. I walked back into the living room, bat in hand, trying to look like I knew what I was doing. I called my dad. No answer. Tried my mom. Nothing. Feeling more nervous, I called 2 of my best friends. They didn't pick up either. My 12-year-old brain immediately jumped to the worst possible thought. What if something terrible happened to all of them? For the first time in my life, I decided to call 911. The operator told me to stay calm and said the police were on their way. But staying calm wasn't easy. There was a hallway near the front door, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was hiding there, waiting to jump out and grab me, or worse. My dogs were right next to me, staring at the hallway, ears perked up. That made it even harder to breathe. If they were acting like something was wrong, I knew I wasn't imagining things. My fear kept growing, and I couldn't take my eyes off that hallway. I stood there, frozen, for what felt like forever. The operator kept telling me to stay calm. Then, finally, the front door opened. My parents walked in. My dad took one look at me and said, "What the hell are you doing?" I quickly explained. He didn't waste any time. He grabbed his pistol from the front room, and we started clearing the house. I always thought it would be cool to go around checking rooms like a SWAT team, but man, I was scared out of my mind. My heart was racing every time we opened a bedroom door. We didn't find anything. The police showed up soon after, and they told us that this kind of thing had been happening for the past few weeks. People were waiting until homeowners left, checking doors, and if they were unlocked, they'd go in and steal things. The police said whoever it was probably left when they realized someone was home. But that didn't sit right with me, because I only heard the door open and close once.